לא, אבל אתמול היה, פעם דבר היה רק 2.
אחד לא, אחד תיקו.
אפשר... למה?
לאן אתה מינים עושים האלה? ראיתי שאמרו כמה לפני.
לא.
אני מניח שזה המשפחות, לא?
لما يطلعك الدنجل انزل بقول لك بتفتح انزل والله هيدا خليني يجي تتحركش بالمرة يلا انزل
אחד מהם זה שהדעה של סופרת.
שהתחלת לדבר. התחלתי לרוץ.
למה הוא המריא? למה הוא המריא המסוק?
לא, ואז היא תוכל לזוז עכשיו.
جوا جوال الذهب
ما في الكون. Good. يا ولد يا مسخرة يا أبو. بترقص تطلعش انت. يا حبيبي انزل يا حبيبي انزل.
here on Israeli soil, you know, anything can happen. And I want to now ask you a little bit about what's going to happen next. What are the next stages? These girls are coming back to Israel. What happens next? So I'll transfer back to you.
Yeah, so what we need to talk about, like you said, is what happens next to these girls. I want to talk about the psychological aspect of all of this. There were 5 female soldiers left in Hamas captivity. One is now left behind. The questions come, were these girls held together? Did they have to say goodbye to each other? Did Agam have to see all of these girls that she's been held in captivity for 477 days say goodbye? What was it like when they had to depart? There's a lot of moments that we will never know what these girls had to go through, what these final goodbyes were. But Agam is left behind, and we don't know what her condition is. There was a proof of life of her back in July. But at this moment, she is the last female soldier that is in Hamas captivity. What happens next is the parents of these 4 soldiers were notified early this morning to be in Reim in southern Israel, which is one of the bases. The first stop these hostages will be going to. They will be going there for initial checks. They'll be changing their clothes. Then they will be moved to Sheba Hospital. We have been covering Sheba Hospital, how they've been preparing for these hostages to come back.
So they're going today to Valley.
Correct. And both of these hospitals have been preparing for hostages to come out, making rooms feel welcoming, homey. Their families will then also have more reunification moments at the hospital. But the initial steps would be to do these checkups in Reim, changing their clothes, seeing how they are. What's amazing is we saw these girls walking out of Hamas captivity. They appeared to look strong. They appeared to look stable. We saw Daniela have a smile on her face. We don't know what that smile means, but we can only imagine what it means. The fact that 4 of them came in together, 4 of them are leaving, as we mentioned, 1 is now left behind. It is a critical moment. Next steps is we will be seeing the transfer from the Red Cross to IDF. The girls will then be taken from in Gaza by the IDF back into Israel. You made a critical point about Nama Levi's experience, that she's interned, she's volunteered with the UN, the Red Cross. If you could talk a little bit more about what that moment means for her to now be in the hands of the Red Cross.
So I think it's important to know volunteered with of peace organizations at just the age of 19 when she was kidnapped. And we saw her in Hamas captivity saying, there's a famous video where she says, I know Palestinians in Gaza. And of course, that didn't help her. And of course, her time with the Red Cross didn't help her either, because again, the Red Cross has done nothing for the hostages other than essentially been an Uber service to shuttle them back and forth. They have not visited any of these girls for 477 days, and we can only imagine what these girls have been through. And I understand that we have a guest with us connecting. Do we have Ruth Wasserman? Well, I think we've lost that connection, so we'll continue here. So, you know, we're seeing these girls, as Sho said, we saw them coming out. They're all walking. They seem to be strong, but of course, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm sure more details will emerge in the coming days. In the meantime, we have the 3 girls who came back last week doing the first Shabbat with their families. So that was a very joyful thing to see. And we hope that Naama, Danielle, Karina, and Lili will also return home. They'll be taken care of at the hospital. They'll get reacclimated, and hopefully we'll be able to spend the next Shabbat with their families as well. And, you know, I do want to talk again about Albel Yehud, because Albel Yehud is the last Israeli civilian, female civilian, who is being held in Gaza. Now, she's not being held by Hamas. She's being held by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And there was some controversy over her release. She was supposed to be released today as per the agreement. And that did not happen. So she is still being held in Gaza, and we don't know much about her condition. She was being held by a separate terrorist faction in Gaza, and Agam Berger, of course, the final IDF observer who is still in captivity. And, we talked a little bit about Naama Levy. I want to also, talk a little bit about each and every one of the girls so that our viewers can get a better understanding of what, of who these girls are. So Danielle Gilboa, we're seeing again on the screen, we're seeing again the girls being paraded on stage in what appears to be a military uniforms. I think that's Danielle Gilboa smiling, raising her hands. Leary raising their hands in victory. We know from previous hostage releases that Hamas instructed these soldiers, the hostages, to smile, to pretend like all is well. Benevolent captors, of course, we know that's not the case. They receive specific instructions to smile, to wave to the crowds. It's all staged. We've seen them setting up for this. So those are the visuals that you're seeing now of the 4 girls being paraded on stage, told to smile, told to raise their hands, and now making their way back to Israel. So I do want to talk a little bit about each and every hostage. We have Danielle Gilboa. She's 20 years old. She's a passionate musician. She studied piano, she studied singing, and her dream is to pursue a professional career in music. She's known by her family and friends for her optimism, for her kindness. We have Naama Levy, who we talked about. She's 20 years old. She's a dedicated triathlete. She participated in a delegation fostering connections between American, Palestinian, and Israeli youth to create positive change, to promote peace. Her family and friends describe her as very gentle, very quiet, yet full of light, full of joy, strong, determined. We have Karina Arayev, also now age 20. You have to understand that many of these girls, they've been in Hamas captivity for over 15 months. They've had their birthdays in Gaza. So many questions, how they spent their birthdays. Were they alone? Were they with each other to keep them company? And so Karina Arayev, she loves dancing, singing, writing, cooking, and she dreams of becoming a psychologist. She's known for being very compassionate, for bringing people together. That's how her family and friends describe her. And last but not least, we have Miri Albad, who really radiates joy. She has an infectious smile, an infectious laugh. She loves traveling, singing, photography, and her dream is to become an architect. So these were, the dreams of these girls before they were brutally abducted into Gaza. For 15 months, 477 days, and we can only imagine what they've been through. So Shosh, I want to turn back to you now. We're seeing once again the visuals of these girls being paraded on stage. What more can you tell us about these girls and about their return to Israel?
I think we saw last week that really defined this week when we had three female hostages released for the first time since November of 2023. I want to talk about Emily Damari, this resilience that she has already showcased to us. We have no idea what she went through in Hamas captivity, but she came out with 2 less fingers on one of her hands after she suffered a gunshot wound to her hand from October 7th. These girls are coming out different than how they went in. They were these beautiful people you just illustrated, and I know that they will, of course, work to get back to that. But there is a long road ahead of them of dealing with the trauma that they went through in Hamas captivity. These girls were held underground in tunnels. Noah Argamani, one of the rescued hostages that the IDF went in a very special covert operation to rescue with 2 other male hostages. She was rescued back in June. She said that she was held with some of these girls in underground tunnels, was actually a domestic slave with Eliri Albag that you mentioned that is coming out right now. These girls have their own stories. They might have come out together, but they have their own individual stories of the hellish conditions that they had to endure. As we are seeing on the screen, I want to make the distinction that Hamas has released these girls looking different than what we've seen, right? Their hair is, they're in ponytails. They are in what appears to be uniform. The last week we saw Doron come out in a very pink looking sweater. This separation and the clear curation that Hamas is trying to differentiate between last hostages and these hostages is clear. What we can tell you about these 4 hostages is, like we've said, we've seen proof of life of some of them. Nama Levy is the only one we have not had proof of life of. Here she is walking out of Hamas captivity strong. We see her leaving the stage right now with a smile on her face. You mentioned that it could be part of psychological warfare. Hamas is saying, make sure you're smiling. But I do see that when these girls exited those vehicles, transferred to the Red Cross, I can only imagine what is going through their mind, knowing that they are leaving Gaza after they were brutally kidnapped. And we have no idea what the conditions were. But this is a new start on life. The hostages released last week saying, Romy Gonen said last week, I came back to life. This is life again for these girls once they step back into Israel, and they are officially transferred from the Red Cross to Israel, which will happen in Gaza, then taken to the base in Reim for initial checkups.
We should have a guest joining us very shortly. In the meantime, as I said, I'm seeing these visuals of the girls waving, smiling. Again, we know from past hostage releases that Hamas instructs them to do this. So we can perhaps only assume that this is what they're being instructed to do. But you are seeing them being paraded, and you are seeing them come out very differently. You're seeing them with their hair done in ponytails. Perhaps they, did this, braided each other's hair. They're not sure, but they're coming out. And yes, Hamas is making this distinction, putting them in sort of military style attire to emphasize the fact that they are soldiers. And I think we see visuals of them as well carrying little bags. And we know that last week Hamas gave each of the hostages what it called a little gift bag with photos of them in captivity in the map of Gaza. So really psychological warfare that continues, that this terrorist organization is continuing to wage against these hostages, against these girls. And, they're making their way now back into Israel. It's going to be uniting with their families. Their parents have arrived at the Reim base, waiting for the reunion, waiting to hug their daughters once again after 477 days with, barely any signs of life. We did see a few hostage videos. Recently, we saw a hostage video of Lili Albag. And as you said, Nama Levy, we had no sign of life. You did not know the condition. And again, Hamas has not released the conditions of the hostages. They haven't told us which hostages are still alive and which hostages are still dead. Part of it's psychological, continuing psychological. We received news that Hamas has notified vendors that it's received a list from Israel of 200 Hamas terrorists, 200 Palestinian prisoners that are set to be released in exchange for these hostages. Again, this is a part of the deal that can be the cost of this deal. On the one hand, it is overjoyed to see these girls returning home. On the other hand, this comes at a very, very steep price where Israel today is releasing 200 Palestinian prisoners, many of them with blood on their hands. 70 of them are reportedly going to be deported to other countries, and the rest will make their way back into Judea and Samaria, into Gaza. And so this is, part of the price that we will cost of things. And of course, again, we hear behind us in Hostage Square really an atmosphere, it's turned from an atmosphere of anxiety to really an atmosphere of joy, clapping, singing, tears of joy from the crowd as we see these girls making their way back into Israel. And I think what we're seeing now also on the screen are images of friends of Liri. We see Liri's friends with the t-shirts saying Liri, which is out for Liri. We're seeing the images of the families and the friends as they're awaiting the return of their loved ones. They're also watching footage as we have it. So I want to see if we have our guest connected. Do we have a guest coming on right now? Okay, so our guest is still not connected. So we'll continue. Now, we just received an update actually that according to Israeli media, the hostages are set to cross over into Israeli territory in about 20 minutes. So they are making their way over. This is very, very exciting. They're making their way over and they will soon meet in the IDF will take them from the hands of the Red Cross and transfer them over to Israel, back onto Israeli soil. And we're seeing again the visual of the 4 girls waving, smiling up on stage. They do appear to be in good condition. They all are able to walk. So that's what we're seeing right now. And of course, they're making their way over. So we have reports that in about 20 minutes, they are supposed to arrive here in Israel. And of course, we are waiting to receive that footage to see them being transferred over to the IDF. So, Chef, I want to turn it back to you. Let's talk a little bit about the Davis family. Sure. They 2 children. One just celebrated his 2nd birthday in Gaza. Baby, essentially. There's the big health over there, and there is very serious concern. Very serious concern as to first, the children, the women first. You're seeing Hamas not hold up its end of the bargain. So what can you tell us about this family? I'm transferring back to you.
Yes, so this, like you said, a lot of these faces, these stories have captivated the world, but the Bibas family has truly captivated the whole world, especially when it comes to these 2 young children. They were supposed to be the first release, a part of this first phase of the deal. Children were the first ones to come out alive, and we have not seen any information on the Bibas family.
We have, I think, all connecting. So you wanna?
Great. I'm going to transfer this back to you so you can kickstart our conversation with Or.
So I think Or is on with us. Oh, welcome. All from. Can you hear us? Unfortunately, I cannot hear all. Let's see if we can. We are having some technical difficulties out here since we're out in the field. Okay, I think we seem to have lost him. We don't hear all, but he's working on getting a connection. Oli Saskal, a military and security expert from the Israel Defense and Securities Forum, working on the audio. So yes, now we hear you. Oh, can you hear us?
Shabbat Shalom, great to be with you. Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom, great to be with you on this very exciting morning. So I want to, ask you some questions. Hamas, for some reason, decided to advance this release of the hostages. It was supposed to be scheduled for today at 4 p.m. It suddenly announced that it would be releasing them early Why did it decide to do this?
Well, one thing stands out for me is that Hamas is using this deal and the release of the hostages as, for them, an amazing propaganda tool. And I can absolutely understand why Hamas is doing it right now. At 4 p.m., the sun is already beginning to set. And right now, it's morning in the Gaza Strip. Everyone is out. And if there is one purpose to this deal for Hamas, is not exactly to release the hostages as much as it is to muscle up and show its force in the eyes of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. This, Hamas is taking a trick out of the ISIS playbook here. They're all suited up. They even exceeded ISIS. They're giving them some sort of horrible, certificates and kits so they can take home with them with Palestine flags and all these things. A signing ceremony and every detail, the custom, the ribbon, they're all carefully calculated. Look at the screen behind them. Why do they need to read it to write these things in English? Not people in Gaza Strip usually speak Arabic, but it is for the PR move to show the world that they are in control of the Gaza Strip.
Right. So Hamas, as we said, they've been staging this entire release. We see them in full military gear. It's clearly supposed to be a show of force, to show that Hamas is alive and well in Gaza after 15 months of war. So what do you make of this? I mean, is this really all just for show, or is Hamas really alive and well in the Gaza Strip?
Well, there's two things. One, yes, it's for show, absolutely. And we saw how last week when the 3 first hostages were released, how, a drone footage actually saw them being released, allegedly, if cameras saw intact buildings around them, but then the drone footage showed how much devastation there was. And they found the one location that was, somehow with visible standing buildings. And right now, they are in so-called Palestine Square in Gaza. This is a place where our combatants fought several times. They uncovered vast underground networks, including senior officials of Hamas who lived right nearby, with underground tunnels with a very high level of cyber connecting in between them. And all these things show us how Hamas is trying to show that they're the sovereign in the Gaza Strip. But yeah, at the same time, we shouldn't lose sight that Hamas is very much alive and kicking in the Gaza Strip. They're not just hiding in the tunnels. They will very soon be able to go back to the northern Gaza Strip. And this is something that Israel needs to take into account. In the end of these 42 days, and at the end of the release of as many hostages as possible, Israel will have to resume the fighting because, as we can see, Hamas has been rearming and regrouping all along. And for those of us who heard how much Hamas is crushed and devastated, of course, Hamas lost significant capabilities. But this is a deliberate misleading of the Israeli public to claim that Hamas somehow is crushed. Hamas lost capabilities, but is far from crushed, and it is our duty to resume the fighting at the end of whatever phase of the deal that we choose, and in order to crush Hamas and prevent a future massacre.
Now, I just want to stop you for 1 second because I am hearing that the 4 hostages, the 4 girls, have now been transferred to the IDF. We should have hopefully visuals of that soon, but the girls are now in IDF hands, and so that is some excellent, very happy news to say that the girls have now returned to Israel and are now making their way to meet with their families. Now, I want to turn back to you. You mentioned that Israel has to resume the fighting because Hamas is still alive. It's still, it's been severely damaged. Its capabilities have been severely damaged. But as we can see, it's still alive alive and well in Gaza, even if this is just for show. We see today, in exchange for these 4 hostages, we see Israel releasing 200 Palestinian prisoners, some with blood on their hands. This is a very steep price that Israel is paying to return the hostages, but it's something, of course, that Israel feels an obligation, a moral obligation to do, to bring its people back home. So, I want to ask first of all about this price that Israel is paying, and also the second part that Israel is supposed to complete today is a withdrawal from the Netzarim corridor. It's a strategic corridor in Gaza. The IDF is supposed to withdraw from this area, which will allow Palestinians, allow Gazans to return to the north of Gaza. What can you tell us about this, and how will the return of Palestinians to northern Gaza, how will this complicate any future IDF operations, to resume the fighting?
Well, I spoke to combatants who serve in the Netzarim corridor and the commanders in the Southern Division and Southern Command, I'm sorry, and multiple security experts from our IDSF organization, and they are all in unison saying that the Netzarim corridor is crucial to secure the kibbutzim and the townships around the Gaza Strip in the north. This has been some sort of a bandage that blocks the blood. You can say it in some metaphorically, basically blocking Hamas's control and influence over the northern Gaza Strip. So a very significant strategic asset. Israel is not supposed to withdraw from this until the 22nd day of the ceasefire, but we do know that we are interested to see the rest of the 33 hostages alive back home. We are so thrilled to see our 4 sisters back home here. And, we visited the IDSF. We had a delegation to the Nahal Oz post near the Gaza Strip, the Gaza envelope in the south. And we visited the same shelter where these lookouts were kidnapped. And I have to tell you, just to see, the horrific video by Hamas of these military lookouts, how these girls, how they were humiliated and kidnapped, and then being present in the same place and still seeing, signs that we better not discuss here on the walls and on the floor. You see how much of a horrible scandal that was that day. And so if we want to repeat the same pictures in the future, we are free to, let Hamas take back control of the Gaza Strip and so on. If we want to avoid these pictures in the future, we can't go back to the Nile. I hear all sorts of voices that enough with the war. And I hear from prominent people, it's time to end the war and retreat, and we want our life back. We might want our life back in the very short term, but we will energize and invigorate Palestinians in Gaza and everywhere to be even more emboldened to carry out another October 7th, like they promised. So this is the big, big dilemma that's facing Israel right now.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Israel is supposed to withdraw on the 22nd day from the Netzarim corridor. On the 16th day, the negotiations for the second phase of the deal are supposed to commence, although we are seeing that, that there's being pressure put on Israel, on Hamas to resume negotiations even ahead of time, ahead of the 16, days. Do you see this deal continuing to a second and third phases? Because, there's a lot of skepticism over this. What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to tell, but I can tell you that reportedly the discussions on the next phase are already ongoing, even before the 16th day. That was the plan, but discussions are already underway, negotiations and so on. And I think it's a good move because Israel is showing seriousness. But then again, we need to balance all of the war objectives, which is bringing the hostages back. That's a vital, crucial war objective. We cannot imagine the kind of pain and torture that we're going through for over a year and 4 months. So that's a war objective. I'm reminding everyone who don't want to have this deal ongoing. And then the second thing is that we have to complete the other war objectives, which is to change reality in Gaza and topple Hamas. I hear even Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor, saying at the end of this war, Hamas will not be in control of the Gaza Strip. These are very serious statements. And we have to, in many instances in history, especially the first Trump administration, these guys were, a bit more... I would say Zionist than we are in some aspects, and we're more hawkish than we are. And this time around, I think we have to be rallying the Trump administration around that war objective: release all the hostages and then go back to fighting and change reality in Gaza. We can't afford. There was for years the Oslo Accords, disengagement, the Gaza Accord. All of these things were handmade in order to eternalize the conflict and avoid a war, a wider war. And the Israeli public has been some sort of a lab rat. I'm saying it metaphorically and very cruelly, but it's been some sort of a laboratory where we are all the victims of failed policies. So this time we paid so much blood and treasure, and it's time to finish the job in Gaza.
All right, so what we are seeing now, I just want to stop you for a moment. We know that the IDF spokesman is releasing a statement about the hostages. He's saying that the hostages are in good condition and that they have made their way into Israel and that they are on their way now to reunite with their families after 477 days. The hostages are already in Israel. They've been transferred from the Red Cross to the IDF. And so we're seeing the first, I think, visuals should be coming in soon of these girls in Israel, back on Israeli soil after 477 days in captivity in Gaza. They are about to be reunited with their families. And so this is, of course, very, very joyful news to have these girls return home after, 15 months of just unimaginable conditions in Hamas captivity. And so we are now waiting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, something very striking that I think we should all pay attention to is that we're all, and of course it's not an accusation, it's just an observation, that we're all talking about our hostages as being in good condition. And I read the IDF statement. I heard the same comments after the November 23 deal, and we should all be a little bit more, careful and prudent when we talk about, I'm sure that they are in good physical condition when it comes to, God forbid, they're not, visibly injured and so on. But, just by seeing what they've gone through, I think the scars will accompany them all their lives. And in terms of nutrition, exposure to sunlight, physical ability to walk and to function, not to mention the mental price that they've been paying. So we should also take that into account. This is, needless to say, very serious conditions that they've gone through over 15 months in captivity. So
absolutely, that's a very, very important point. We say that they're in good condition in the sense that they're able to walk, that they, appear on the surface to be healthy. But of course, these girls have suffered unimaginable atrocities, both on October 7th and for 15 months in captivity. We all saw the videos of these girls' abduction. We saw Naama Levi's bloodied pants. We can only imagine what they've been put through and what they've gone through these past 15 months. And so, they have crossed the border now into Israel. They appear to be in good condition. But again, they have a very, very long road ahead of them for them to reacclimate, to return to their lives, they're going to be transferred to the hospital where they're going to, hold on one second, we're going over now to the IDF spokesperson who's giving a commentary now.
כחיילות בעת מילוי תפקידן כתצפיתניות ממחנה נחל עוז.
חבר'ה, אתם צריכים אותי?
יחד עם אגם ברגר שעדיין מוחזקת בשבי החמאס. אנחנו מחויבים לחזרתה ולהשבת כל החטופות והחטופים.
חבר'ה, אתם צריכים אותי?
בשעה זו, ההורים עכשיו פוגשים את הבנות במתחם הקליטה הקדמי ברעים. השלמנו את כל ההכנות והבדיקות הנדרשות לקראת חזרתן, ואנחנו ערוכים לקבל אותן ולספק את המענה הראשוני המתאים, ומשם הם ימשיכו עם ההורים לבית החולים. בבוקר ה-7 באוקטובר, התצפיתניות פעלו בגבורה מול האויב וביצעו את משימתן נאמנה. רבות גם נפלו בקרב הקשה, ואנחנו מחבקים את המשפחות השכולות כולן ומלווים אותן.
The IDF spokesperson now recapping the heroism of these girls on October 7th when they were all at the army base and then were abducted by
מדובר בימים
Hamas.
קשים, וכל הכבדה נוספת על המשפחות של החטופים היא מעשה חסר אחריות. הסתמכו על דיווחים של גורמים רשמיים בלבד, ואל תפיצו שמועות בדגש לרשתות החברתיות. זה חשוב. אנחנו ממשיכים להתקדם במימוש ההסכם להשבת החטופות והחטופים, ונערכים וממתינים באחריות לבואם של חטופות וחטופים נוספים, אשר עתידים לחזור בזמן הקרוב. חמאס לא עמד בהסכם מול חובתו להשיב אזרחיות תחילה. אנחנו נעמוד על כך שהרבה מאוד תשוב, וגם שירי וילדי משפחת ביבס, שיש לנו חשש כבד מאוד לגורלם, ואנחנו מצפים לוודאות בעניין הזה, שהן ישובו במהרה. אנחנו מעריכים מאוד את עבודת המתווכות כולן, ועומדים על חזרתן התכופה של האזרחיות ועמידה בהסכם. יש לנו מחויבות לכל החטופות והחטופים האזרחים, לאגם ולחיילי צה"ל שעוד מוחזקים בשבי חמאס בתנאים לא אנושיים. חמאס הוא ארגון טרור רצחני. בשעות האחרונות חמאס מוכיח את האכזריות שלו שהוא מארגן טקס ציני. זהו ארגון טרור רצחני, חשוב שיזכרו את זה בעולם. הוא הציג היום מצג שווא על טיפול ודאגה לחטופות, כשבפועל הוא מחזיק באכזריות כבר 477 ימים אזרחיות ואזרחים על לא עוול בכפם. המשימה לא תושלם עד שכולם ישובו לשטח מדינת ישראל. לוחמי צה"ל נשארים ערוכים גם בשעות אלו בקווי ההגנה ברצועת עזה ופועלים למנוע איום על יישובי העוטף. מאחורי ההישגים בלחימה ויצירת התנאים להסכם החשוב עומדים לוחמי צה"ל ומפקדיו בסדיר ובמילואים. הנלחמים מזה 15 חודשים ומשלמים מחירים כבדים. מעל לכולם, הלוחמים שנפלו בלחימה, 841 חללים, ובנוסף להם לוחמים רבים שנפצעו בגוף ובנפש. בשנה האחרונה משפחות רבות הצטרפו למעגל השכול והפצועים, ולצד ההתרגשות הגדולה מחזרתן של החטופות, עלינו לזכור את המחיר הגדול ואת ההקרבה של המשפחות ושל הלוחמים במלחמה, שהם עומדים מאחורי הבוקר הזה. זהו כאב גדול ומשותף לכל עם ישראל, והוא מלווה את כולנו בכל רגע. צה"ל פועל יחד עם שב"כ, מוסד, והדרג המדיני במאמצים להחזיר את כל החטופים לישראל, את החיים והחללים. אנחנו נמשיך להילחם בכל הגזרות ולהבטיח את ביטחון מדינת ישראל. אני אשא עכשיו מספר מילים באנגלית ולאחר מכן אענה על שאלות. Since the October 7th massacre, our mission has been clear. Bring home all the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Today, as part of these ongoing efforts, we welcomed home 4 more Israeli hostages after 477 days in Hamas captivity. Liri Elbag, age 19. Naama Levi, age 20. Karina Arayev, age 20. Daniela Gilboa, age 20. 4 IDF soldiers who were all abducted by Hamas from Nahal Oz on October 7th, 2023. Today, we salute and embrace them and their families as they reunite just now after so long. We cannot and will not forget the 90 hostages, including women, children, and elderly men, still remain in brutal conditions in Hamas captivity. Hamas failed to meet its obligations to first release Israeli female civilian hostages as part of the agreement. We are determined to return of Arbel Yahud, an Israeli citizen kidnapped from near Oz, and also Shiri Bivas and her 2 children, Kfir and Ariel, whose welfare we are extremely concerned about. We appreciate and thank the efforts of all international mediators, United States, Qatar, and Egypt, and we expect them to make sure Hamas stands in accordance with the agreement. IDF troops will continue to be deployed and operate and to do everything to protect the citizens of Israel. Our mission is not over until every single hostage comes home. אני אענה עכשיו על שאלות בעברית.
שאלת חדשות 12. מה ישראל מתכוונת?
Okay. So the IDF spokesperson giving a statement on the return of the 4 hostages. And what we're seeing now are the friends, family of the hostages crying tears of joy upon seeing their release. And I want to turn back to you in just a moment. But before we do, we're here in Hostages Square, and behind me, we can hear on the loudspeaker, we hear the names of the remaining hostages in Gaza. They are putting up the pictures and saying the names of each of the remaining hostages in Gaza. The IDF spokesperson is saying that Israel will not rest until each and every hostage is returned home. Now, I want to turn to you. We heard now from the IDF spokesperson, he's saying that Israel's paying a heavy price, and that Israel is going to continue until each hostage is returned home. What are your thoughts on his statement?
Look, it's a very critical time in this war in our nation's history, and the IDF spokesperson reflects, I think, the military's mission, which is to continue to stand the guard. And absolutely, this is an extremely tense time for the forces as well, to be on the lookout and to prepare for the next missions, because the war is not over yet, and we are remain committed to bring all hostages back home. I think it's very troubling to see how Hamas committed to pass the lists of all the remaining hostages and at what point they will be released. And of course, this terror group enjoys really to enact psychological warfare on us all. And this is exactly how we remain very concerned about the fate of the Bibas family, who are supposed to be released today or in the next phase. And I think the IDF spokesperson really reflected what we are all concerned about, that we need certainty about the next hostages.
All right, Oli Safal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
My pleasure, and let us only hear good news and more hostages returning from now on.
Good news, absolutely. Now, Shosh, I want to turn back to you. Tell us a little bit about what we're hearing behind us in Hostage Square, because we're hearing, shouts of joy. We're hearing a lot of emotion coming out of the square today. So I'm going to turn this back over to you. Sure.
So Saturday, and people, part of the forum, come together demanding for the release of these hostages. Of course, today is a very special day because we're actually getting hostages back. As you said, the hostages. The Magigators, Steve Lubowitz, told us that the girls were said to not stop smiling right now. They're many IDF soldiers being transferred back into Israel on their way, and they're currently reuniting with their families in the Reading base. This is a moment that so many people have been waiting for here in Hostage Square. Every Saturday they're fighting, pushing, trying to break barriers to get to those. This is the moment Israel has been waiting for. There will be hopefully more moments like this in the future, but a step in the right direction. So hear the chanting and hear the crowd consistently saying the names. One of the names they just said right now is Shiri Bibas and her family. Mentioned, just heard from the IDF spokesperson. They are deeply concerned about the status of of where they are. We're also concerned about the status of Armelia because another civilian is supposed to be released. Part of this phase, last week's phase to get these 33 hostages out that was agreed. Holding different people captive. So civilians coming over. This plant, after behind the area on Sunday. So this field, like we lost children, we lost and have our value. These families are was taken with her boyfriend from near Oz. Same with the Bibas family. They taken from there as well. So we are trying to continuously see what is happening here in Hostage Square, but also tell you the live reactions that are going on.
Okay, so we're seeing now footage of the hundreds that have gathered here in Hostage Square. Hundreds of people waiting to see the first visuals of the girls being reunited with their families after 477 days. And of course, still here calling, as we see every single week, thousands gathering to call for the release of the remaining hostages. There are still many hostages in Gaza, elderly men, IDF soldiers, and of course, Shili Bibas and the two Bibas children, along with Yarden Bibas, the father. You know, the Bibas children have become a sort of a symbol for the hostages. Two very small children. Field just celebrated last Saturday, a week ago. He just celebrated his second birthday. He has not known a birthday outside of captivity, outside of Gaza. So just truly tragic circumstances. And what we're seeing now are hundreds of people gathered, and we're told that, you know, they're expecting a crowd of 15,000 people by this evening to join and call for the release of all of the hostages. And now what we're seeing are images, I think, in Israel of the convoy of the girls who are supposed to be making their way to meet with their families, to embrace them after 15 months in unimaginable conditions in Hamas captivity. And we're seeing, the people in Hostage Square anxiously awaiting, holding up signs of Daniel Gilboa, of the Israeli flag. You know, and another point about Daniel Gilboa, you know, back in November of 2023, Hamas issued a statement saying that she was killed in an Israeli airstrike. This, of course, turned out to be false. We've seen Hamas use this tactic many times to, for psychological warfare. They said that she was killed in an airstrike, but in reality, she is alive and making her way right now back into Israel. And so we hope to hear a lot more good news on that. And now there is, as the IDF spokesperson said, very serious concern for the well-being of the Bibas family, of Yarden Bibas, of Shili Bibas, and the two Bibas children, Ariel and Kfir. They were supposed to have been released already, and Hamas is still holding them, as well as Arbel, who was supposed to be released today. Hamas backing out of this agreement and instead releasing the 4 IDF female observers, and still holding Agam Berger and Arbel Yehud. in captivity. They are supposed to be released next week. And of course, Hamas is a terrorist organization. We can't forget that for one moment. They rape, they torture, they murder, and of course, they lie. And so they have been playing psychological warfare games with Israel since the onset, putting the families of the hostages in agony. And so we are seeing them continue with this psychological warfare, with this show, with this PR stunt, you can call it, of releasing the girls, parading them in military uniforms, asking them to smile, asking them to wave, giving them little gift baskets, as they did with the 3 hostages that were released last week, giving them little gift baskets with photos of their time in captivity. So truly continuing with this psychological warfare until the very last moment. And so we are waiting now to hear confirmation that these girls have reunited with their families. Very emotional reunion after 477 days. And, you know, we saw last week the very emotional reunions of Doron and Romi with their families. And, you know, this Friday, we saw them celebrating their first Shabbat back home with their families. So truly very emotional a time here in Israel. And we'll continue to see visuals of the hundreds of people who have gathered here in Hostage Square. There's music playing now. There's an atmosphere of hope, an atmosphere of, I would say, a bittersweet atmosphere, one of joy, but on the other hand, you know, concern for the rest of the hostages. So I want to now turn to Shosh, who's in Hostage Square among the crowd. Shosh, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so there's a lot of music playing. I think people can hear in the background. There is a here in solidarity with the families and the hostages. Just being these are, like you mentioned, these hostages are officially back here in Israel. We said that they have been reuniting with their family in this moment. This is a precious moment in time and in history. And for these hostages, like this, people are these hostages to make sure that they come back. People cheering, holding up more posters. But these are the moments. There is a live stream that's you can hear them right now. Take a listen.
הגיעו לישראל. אדוני, מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן חסד.
This is a blessing. And they are finally back home. And legacy songs that are playing. I want you to come over here so you can see the emotions of so many of these people. But these are the moments, these are the tears. Take a look at some of these people. You can just see the tears in the eyes. This is many people to see the soldiers coming back, the soldiers to be returned by Hamas after they were taken on October 7th. You can just see the emotions of these girls. And it's really critical to make sure to remember that this is affecting so many people. Just take a look at this. Look at this moment right here. People coming together, embracing each other. This is the hope of Israel. This is the civilization of Israel. And one person is injured, one person is wounded, so many other people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shosh. Okay, thank you, Shosh. So the girls are now officially back in Israel, officially about to be reunited with their families. We heard cheers from the crowd as this was announced over the loudspeaker. Really an atmosphere that was, bittersweet has turned to an atmosphere of joy here in the crowd. We heard a prayer being said for the hostages, for their return. And, this is a very joyous occasion. These girls are finally back in Israel. We see Naama Levi, Danielle Gilboa, Karina Arayev, and Liri Albag, the 4 female IDF soldiers, the 4 observers who were kidnapped from the army base, now returning home after 477 days. A really joyous occasion. Incredible to be able to report this good news. And of course, we cannot forget that there are still hostages remaining in Gaza. The IDF spokesperson saying that Israel will not rest until each and every hostage is returned home. And we're here in Hostage Square with hundreds of people, 15,000 expected to arrive in the coming hours to call for the release of the remaining hostages in Hamas captivity. The Bibas family, Arbel, Yehud, and so many others that are still in Hamas captivity and whose condition is unknown. Hamas is supposed to release a list of the remaining 33 hostages that are supposed to be released in this first phase and let Israel know the condition of each and every one of these hostages. It has so far failed to do so, and we've seen Hamas not hold up its end of the hostage deal on a number of occasions. But Israel continuing, with its obligations under this deal, releasing. And now I'm told that we have another guest, Ruth Wasserman-Lande, joining us. Ruth, are you with us? Ruth is a security expert, a former member of Knesset. Ruth, are you with us?
I am.
Great. So it's great to have you here today. Let's just start, how are you feeling today at seeing these incredible visuals of the girls returning home?
So first of all, I would like to add to the prayer that I just heard on the stage. Thank you, Lord, for making this happen for those girls to come home to their families. That's first and foremost. Because we as the Jewish people value life. This is something that is completely, there is an inability to describe the sense of emotion that is attached to that. However, I do want to make a comment on the fiasco of the how should I call it, the theatricals that the designated Hamas organization put those girls through. Because I really have a little care to mention those audiences who do pay attention to such theatricals and cannot see through them. However, those girls, there should be an understanding on both sides, and this should be adhered to and supervised by the international arena, not the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, whose hands are not clean, in my humble opinion, but those of the international arena that share our Western values, that in future handovers, our girls, our civilians, our hostages that have been held in inhumane conditions for so many days cannot and should not be put in such situations, full stop. And this should be a no-go. And they will adhere if the international arena, particularly the US, will make this absolutely clear. They should not have to go through this absolute fiasco, making them smile, wave their hands on the background of the Zionist, whatever issues that they had been laid behind them with UNRWA signs, with Hamas signs, and so on. That's number one. And obviously, there should not be hundreds and thousands of men whistling, shouting, and surrounding the area. This is inhumane, it's inappropriate, it's completely lacking of honor. And of course, a Muslim radical society would very much understand that. It is beyond me why we do not absolutely require them to be made not to do that. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to say that the most important aspect of Israeli leverage that remains at this particular moment is the Netzarim crossing, and the fact that our IDF soldiers are preventing from hundreds of thousands and millions perhaps of civilian Gazans to go back to exactly those same places that they had been there before in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Now, that's exactly what the Hamas wants, more than their murderers and rapists and terrorists that are held in our prisons. And in order for us to properly leverage that last and absolutely final leverage for this moment, I think that it should be rethought. What are the prices that should be paid by the Hamas in return for this particular leverage, i.e. all of our hostages, rather than drops of hostages coming in every few weeks, which is also driving the entire nation and, of course, the families very, very, very crazy. It's very, very emotionally difficult.
Absolutely. And, we see that Hamas not only put on this parade, this PR stunt that we saw today, parading these poor girls around, but it also didn't fulfill its part of the deal today. It was supposed to release Al-Belyahud. It was supposed to release Shiri Bibas, but it did not. What impact do you think this could have on the next stages of the deal?
Well, I think this is exactly the opening that we need. And it was obvious that the Hamas would not fulfill their agreement up to the T. By the way, it's against their interest at this particular stage to not fulfill because, as I said, what they really need and want is the IDF moving out of Netzarim. That's what they need and want. And we have to leverage that to the T. This is exactly the opening. Not renegotiating the entire thing, not giving up on our hostages, God forbid, but renegotiating not with Egypt and Qatar, but with the United States of America to press to make it absolutely clear. You want Netzarim? Give us the hostages back. That is what needs to be done. And also, it's very clear, not our narrative telling, which is almost non-existent, not the lack of PR that we are accustomed to, because we give it so little thought and so little time and energy, especially because we are sticking to the truth. We are sticking to what needs to be done. But that's not the mentality we are dealing with. That is not the culture we are dealing with. We need to learn, frankly, from the PR stunts, from the absolutely fiasco-like theatricals that are played by the Hamas. You want that? Get that. We need to learn that. And it's not lowly step. It's understanding where we are, in what kind of neighborhood, mentality, and culture we are. Our girls are heroines. They are absolute courageous lionesses, women of valor. I salute them. Not only the girls, all of our hostages. It's beyond comprehensible. and we should
So
all
Ruth, I want
explain.
to stop you for
Yes.
just one moment because
Sure.
we're getting news that the girls are now meeting with their families for the very first time. So this is an absolute joy to be able to report that these girls are now, they've arrived at the Army base. I think we're seeing visuals now of them arriving at the Army base and meeting their families now for the very first time after 477 days in horrific conditions in captivity. So that is wonderful news. And we're seeing visuals of IDF soldiers, of their families, of their friends, clapping, smiling, tears of joy upon hearing that they've been reunited with their families. Now, Ruth, I want to turn back to you. You know, you mentioned about the Netzalim corridor and this very strategic point. You know, we're hearing a lot of voices here in Israel saying that once this deal is over and we get the hostages back home, that Israel needs to resume the fighting in Gaza. There's sort of a mixed messages, however, being sent by the international community. And, you know, when the IDF withdraws from the Netzalim corridor and the Palestinian civilians return to the north, as you said, how will this impact the IDF's ability to be able to return and resume the fighting and eliminate Hamas?
So first of all, we need to understand that resuming the fighting is always an option. We have a very strong army. We are well equipped. We have resilience, and it is possible. However, it is a very difficult feat, and there will be losses. And once the civilians go to the northern part of Gaza, which is exactly what Hamas wants, we need to understand, and it's about time that we internalize what they have been doing and their mechanism of fighting, and that is putting themselves amidst the civilian population. That is exactly the point. They've done this before. They will do it again. So it's almost like starting the entire exercise, if you wish, all over again. Whilst if we use our current leverage, which was taken with blood of our soldiers, of our fighters, then it's a Rim corridor. This is still possible at this particular moment with the help of one international player, and just one, because all the others are completely and utterly irrelevant. They were not there by our side when we needed it, and they will not be by our side when we leave the Netzarim. The only relevant current role player is the United States of America and the current administration, and they should be addressed to this particular point. Give our hostages back, full stop. Otherwise, some of them will not be given back because our leverage will be gone.
All right. Well, Ruth Wasserman Landa, thank you so much for speaking to us today. You've given us a lot of interesting points to consider moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care and God bless.
God bless. And we are going back here to Hostages Square. We're seeing the visuals of the hostages, and we've received word that the four girls, Miri Albag, Naama Levi, Daniela Gilboa, and Karina Arayev, have now returned to Israel, have now met with their families, have been reunited after 477 days in Hamas captivity. And with that wonderful news, we are going to conclude our live broadcast. And of course, stay tuned to ILTV. Follow us on our channels for any additional news. And God bless. Thank you so much for watching us today.